Welcome back to my channel. I'm Chris Francis and I run a portrait studio here in the heart of Birmingham in the UK. And here on my channel, I'm teaching you how to become a better photographer and in the process, hopefully, try to unleash your creative juices and hopefully your understanding. Stay tuned. So what are we talking about in this video today? We're talking about the aperture. So this is the first in a three-part series exploring the exposure triangle. Access to the introduction and other parts in the series can be accessed if you click the link here. Take a quick look at this as it gives you a quick overview of the series. So what is aperture? This is the hole in the lens which controls the light that gets into the camera. As you can see, the construction of the hole is made up of blades which spiral together, making the hole. And a side note, the more blades there are, the pleasing the out of focus element will be and the more expensive the lens often is. But that is beyond the scope of the basic tutorial today. The value of the aperture is expressed as a number, as seen here below. It can be counterintuitive as the bigger the number, the smaller the hole, and vice versa. The smaller the number, the bigger the hole. Aperture is also known as the f-stop, and when the expression is used wide open in photography, that denotes that the aperture, the hole, is at its widest. I think aperture is my favorite element to play with, as it allows you to be more creative. By setting a particular aperture, say for instance high, you can get most of the image sharp and in focus, but the hole is made much smaller, and therefore other elements of the triangle have to be adjusted to get the right exposure. If a subject isn't moving, the shutter speed can easily be opened longer, but you have to take care, because if it's opened too much, this can introduce camera shake, because the camera will actually pick up your movements from your hand. This is why a lot of landscape photographers use tripods to hold the camera still, but more on that in part 2. With a higher f-stop like f11 and above, there is a deeper depth of field. I think we need to stop here and define what is meant by depth of field. Depth of field is the portion of the image which is in focus and out of focus. So when we have a deep depth of field, it means that the majority of the image from back to front will be in focus. When there is a shallow depth of field caused by opening up the aperture, then less of the image is in focus. So at the moment, I'm shooting this video in around about 5.6, thereabouts. So I should be sharp, and yet my background, which is approximately 5 foot away, is slightly blurred. This is because it is slightly out of my depth of field. So if I come close to the camera, I now move out of my focus zone. So if I come forward to the camera, I become out of focus, or if I go back, now I have moved back beyond my focus plane. This is caused by the aperture. Setting the aperture low can create a very shallow depth of field where subject in front and behind the image would appear out of focus. You can look at these images for example. So if you look at these images where the background has been blurred, this is known as bokeh. This can be extremely useful when you are trying to draw the attention of the eye to a particular part of the image. There is a drawback, because if you are photographing multiple subjects, those items or people who are not in the same focal plane will be out of focus. So when shooting groups of people, the aperture must be high enough to get everybody into focus. Like I've mentioned before in other videos, when you're photographing, you're juggling each of these elements to get the correct exposure. Sometimes you would have to sacrifice something in order to gain the acceptable exposure. If there are parts of the exposure triangle that you don't fully understand, then just simply go over that particular subject again. If you're anything like me, it took me a long while to get this information embedded into my skull to a point where it becomes automatic. So don't give up, persevere, and keep reviewing the video until it clicks. Happy shooting.